world. My name is Christina Kran from OneHealthLessons.com. Today, I have the privilege to talk with Mr. Tyler Chuck from the United States, who is actually affiliated with the BASIS organization that is basically providing courses for young children. What type of courses they are providing? Mr. Tyler Chuck will basically tell us more. Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to come chat with everyone here today.
Okay, thank you for introducing yourself. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, you're affiliated with the BASIS organization. Can you please tell me what are the activities of the BASIS organization? When the organization was founded, how long it was operating, in which area of the United States, etc., etc.
Yeah, so BASIS stands for Bay Area Scientists Inspiring Students. Um, it's been a program that's been around since 1997, and the goal is to connect local scientists in the Bay Area, and it's kind of where it got its start, to elementary school classrooms to um, be able to go in, share a little bit about who they are and the science that they do to help inspire these students to hopefully eventually become a scientist, just like the role models that are joining their classrooms.
Excellent. And for instance, I was wondering, I am like, for instance, from the social science background, and I am not affiliated much with the organizations who are working in the field of STEM education. So, for instance, what is your opinion about STEM sciences?
Yeah, so I think that STEM is such an important field for students to be introduced to and and get into. I think that STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, um, provides a baseline way of thinking to ask questions about the world, be curious, and try to solve some of those questions. So for our young students, it's so important that even if they don't become a scientist, that they learn the scientific background that is so prevalent in STEM, such that they would be able to think critically about their life, their decisions, what they choose to believe. I think it's more important now than ever to have that scientific literacy. I also think that STEM education is extremely important because it prepares students for the workforce that is um, being more and more STEM focused. So whether jobs are in science or technology or engineering, or at the very least use lots of mathematics in them, it's so important that students have that understanding, that background, and the fundamental STEM education to set them up for a really scientifically literate life.
Um, I remember that when I was a kid, sciences were exclusively reserved for talented students in my school. Therefore, I was always skeptical actually whether to attend these classes or not, because as far as I remember, I was afraid from the teachers, because they at that time I remember they liked actually. Fast thinking. And when you're a kid, you are always tending, or you're more prone to ask questions before you start thinking, actually. So, therefore, in your opinion, what is the best strategy to let students or young children be attentive in class, especially regarding science or mathematics?
Mistrina, first of all, I'm so sorry that that was your educational background, that science was framed as something that was just for the smart or the elite.
Yes.
I really think that that is one of the issues that is really prevalent today, that some people think that science isn't for them, when really it's the background and that fundamental um, understanding of seeing the world in a certain way. Um, I think it's been frustrating in recent years having to simply fight to say that science is real and that science matters. So I'm so sorry about that. I do think, though, that you're 100% correct. Young students naturally um, have very curious minds, and it's our job as educators to really facilitate them into taking those curious thoughts and then turning them into curious questions that they can then search for thoughtful answers to. And it's our job as educators to sort of guide our young students through that process. So you're totally right in saying that it's so important for them to ask questions. Um, Here in the United States, and specifically in California, we've adopted something called the Next Generation Science Standards, which are standards that I really like. Um, and instead of really having students simply memorize what science is, they encourage students to think about, how do scientists think? What do scientists do? What is this process of science? And I think that at a fundamental level, that is a really great way to foster a curiosity that students can be curious and wonder about the world. So whether they are going outside on a hike and they're wondering why moss grows on one side of the tree and and not on the other, um, there are so many there's so much science behind why that's happening, right? Um, or they're off and they're seeing a river and they're seeing the direction that it flows and why at certain parts it flows more quickly and certain parts it flows more slowly, and where there's maybe might be trash building up at certain points. There's so much science behind our everyday worlds, and it's just so important to have students just keep asking those questions, as well as to get outside so that they can ask those questions themselves.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Definitely, science is for everyone, not just for the elite or the people so-called talented in school that sometimes educators or teachers are choosing just because they would like to work with such a type of students. Therefore, I think that there is a need for more assistantship or mentorship for children who are really curious to learn but maybe do not understand some concepts or notions yet of science. Therefore, I remember that also as a kid, geography class was the best class that I ever attended because simply the teacher could explain in a very interactive way why geography matters. You mentioned about the rivers as well. So definitely we studied with many visual materials as well. But I remember in mathematics was really interesting for me, but at the same time, year by year, I was struggling and I was thinking like, is this teacher explaining good or not? Or am I not understanding? Or maybe I'm no longer interested for the cause. Therefore, I think that what basis organization is doing is relatively fabulous, providing mentorship and assistantship and teaching courses to young children is basically giving some new opportunities and new thoughts, because when we're kids we're trying always to say, oh, I will become a pilot, I will become a doctor, I will become a police officer. Therefore we're undecisive, and that from that so-called notion being undecisive can um, later on provoke something in the mind of the children and say, oh, I think that I was not able to do it, but now I am able. Therefore, that motivation is very beneficial. And in, I would like to know, what are the pedagogical strategies that are used by the educators in the basis organization, and basically if this question can be related more to the projects you're conducting currently, if you can talk also about the project of basis organization.
I could talk about pedagogy for a long time, I think. Um, but I think that the way that I look at both science education and um, the building up of young children is that positive affirmation is such a strong motivator for them to not only do well, but also to continue to do well. I think that our world is filled with so many negative messages in general that it's the job of teachers and the role models that help to train and send into the classroom to tell students that when they are doing a great job, call out fantastic questions or fantastic responses. And it's these positive things that the students hear that really help them and motivate them to want to do something, not out of some sort of shame or guilt, but because they feel like they're doing a good job. They feel this positive, I can do it sort of mentality. On top of that, the other really important uh, concept with pedagogy that I think is um, needed for science is to bring in hands-on materials and to create and build experiences for our students to learn on the fly, whether we are having them um, perform a chemical reaction in class that's maybe like a baking soda vinegar type thing, or whether we are having them build circuits together and actually have a light bulb light up, like an actual light bulb moment for them. When they get to manipulate things with their hands, um, it's a really powerful modality for them to learn. Some students, they learn visually, some students are auditory learners, but so many students are kinesthetic learners. Um, and that's how they remember certain things and some of these formative opportunities that they're going to get as young people. So it's really important, I think, to one, stay positive, and two, present many different types of learning for these students, with some tangible aspects being really, really important one. Right now, because we're teaching online, I think that's a difficult thing to replicate, but um, it's doable using either some household materials or recording with a kind of a choose your own adventure type video format where students can choose what to put in to um, a flask or choose which ends to connect, even when we can't bring those materials to every student. Um, so sort of replicating that online is difficult, but also um, sort of a fun challenge to think about how to engage these students and really inspire them during a time where they need it more than really ever.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I think that therefore there is also a need of creating a whole story out of the scientific experiment. Therefore,
Yeah,
being in a chemistry class, I remember that also when I was little was one of the best experiences that I ever had in the laboratory, even though it was a simple experiment, but it means a lot. Um, if we see in retrospective from 1997 onwards, what is, according to you, the best project that the basis organization has done so far? And if you can tell us whether you're working only with local schools in California or basically all over the United States.
yeah. So that's a great question. So I will admit I haven't been with um, the organization, Community Resources for Science, that runs the BASIS program. I haven't been there since 1997, so I can't fully, um, represent the entire timeline. But I do think that um, there are a number of really important endeavors that we have been involved in, whether it is um, a series of teacher professional developments that we've put together to really help inspire teachers to do more science when the scientists aren't with them in the classroom, where we help inspire them by bringing them out into the field, connecting them with local scientists, sort of running these cohorts and showing these teachers how science is done. Those have been fantastic. It's been fantastic getting a chance to develop new lessons, whether that is a really simple kindergarten lesson teaching them about clouds and to be curious about the sky and the white, beautiful, puffy cumulus clouds or the thin stratus clouds that they see. Um, and getting a chance to have them dance around, act like a cloud, puff their cheeks up like
Mhm.
a big cumulus cloud. Or more recently, I've been thinking about the fifth grade lesson that I've been helping a scientist develop about vaccines, which is so pertinent right now. It's so important for them to think about how vaccines work, because there's in the news, we're talking about this COVID vaccine, and there are so many questions from so many different sources about whether they should take it or not. Um, Ultimately, the science says that we should take this vaccine. And I think it's really important to be able to teach students how that works and be transparent about the process. Um, some of the analogies that we've been giving in that lesson are that the virus is like an intruder breaking into a house, and um, the having the vaccine is like having a rehearsal or a pre-planned battle plan, kind of like Home Alone, to fight against it. And so these are all, I think important uh, milestones for us. I can't specifically point to one uh, most proud of moment, I think, for us, but rather a series of um, informed, logical steps um, to talk about science, what's going on in our communities, and really sort of share that. Um, I think that as an organization, we've had the amazing opportunity um, to be around for
A
almost
long time.
25 years now,
Yes.
and uh, getting a chance to work with some teachers time and time again to see the strides and the steps and the growth that they've been able to make as a result of working with them over the years, I think is great. Um, it's great to see the institutional knowledge of science that is being set up at some of these schools that we've been doing these professional developments at. It's really exciting to see that they are thrilled about throwing family science nights, even virtually, that we have
Indeed.
put
Yes.
together just a couple months ago. So we're
Indeed.
excited to continue to adapt and continue to grow, um, and to continue to make it a difference um,
In the
in the Bay
communities.
Area,
Yes.
a place that has some of the most concentrated resources in the world, but also has some of the areas of real great need so close by. And it's really important for me to really spread out those resources and give back to our communities.
Indeed, and you mentioned the importance of vaccines. You talked also about COVID-19 and the success or the trajectory of the organization in the last years. Therefore, I heard once that actually in California there was a project in to construct ships, special ships for cleaning the ocean.
Mm.
Therefore, I would like to know if you have heard of this project and if you can relate this um, to your opinion about the importance of learning the approach of One Health. Like, what is One Health and how can we transmit the message of One Health?
So, Srina, I'm sorry, I haven't specifically heard of that initiative.
Okay.
I'm not always great at staying up to date, but I do think that One Health is a vital approach, um, not only for adults to be involved in, but to really speak to students at a young age and talk to them about the importance of working together, connecting, of um, realizing that there are people that bring to the table specific areas of expertise, and when they can work together, we can really tackle huge issues like COVID-19 or other diseases that are spread, or things like oil spills in our oceans, or that are, adversely affecting so many different groups, whether it would be, yeah, the physicians, veterinarians, or environmental scientists that are all working together in this partnership. One of the reasons that I love One Health so much for elementary school students specifically is it is really hard to teach that age group how to work together and to be collaborative. I think that those our students are fed so many messages about individual success, about um, being competitive, trying to win. And I think that not only is One Health so important for our world, but it's so important for teaching our youngsters that it's important to work together. We need to work together. And for us to move forward as a country, that we have to work together um, in collaboration to make this a better world to live in.
Indeed, you are absolutely right. Actually, I would like just to briefly mention that the project of basically cleaning the oceans was actually launched by a company in California that, and the name of the ship was, the Ocean Cleanup. And they were this ship was destined basically to clean the Pacific garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean, actually. Therefore, also I mentioned these projects briefly because I think that is related to the approach of One Health, the importance of water and the waters of the world, such as the seas and the oceans, why it is important the water to remain clean. But therefore, we see that future generations, if they hear about such projects, such as the projects that are conducted by the basis organization in terms of teaching about the importance of One Health and STEM sciences and science in general. Therefore, maybe they can hear about other projects that will help them to discover more about this planet and teach and study, basically to study everything what they can. That is my message. Study everything what you can study and never be
Yeah,
afraid to study it.
and,
Therefore,
and I think that that's such an important message. For the young students. I think I equate studying with being curious, of having that um, yearning for knowledge. Thank you so much for telling me about some of these ocean cleanups. I think that we've been a part of the California coast. Here in California, there is um, an organization that sets up California coastal cleanup days throughout the year. You can actually donate um, to them right on some of your tax forms. There's simply a check mark box that you can give. I've gotten a chance to go to some of these coastal cleanup days, and they're amazing. Not during COVID, as we're
of
not really
course.
gathering as people, but it's really cool just to see community come out, to people to watch these people work together, to have a care about these beautiful coastlines that we are so blessed to live in. Um, we also teach a lesson, about cleaning up our water sources, and
Absolutely.
what oil does to birds, and preventing them from being able to fly, and looking at some of these adverse effects. I think that's one of actually my favorite lessons that we teach. Thinking about ocean conservation, and how all these things are connected, which ties exactly into One Health, and um, how important that really is um, for our world going forward.
Indeed, I would like to thank you very much for giving this informative speech and basically informative answers, I would rather say. And it was a pleasure talking with you and learning something. I think that what I learned today is about the importance of being curious. I think that we university students, we are always tending to do more research than to study. Therefore, studying and being curious are the qualities that we should acquire, even though we forgot them a little bit because we're just currently writing and doing a research. Even though we're still learning while doing a research, but it's a longer process. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. And if anyone watching has any more questions, feel free to send me an email at tyler@crscience.org. We'd love to get you involved in this effort of reaching students and hopefully being inspired by the joy, the curiosity that those students bring to the classroom and all of our experiences together. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and
You're very welcome.
thank you everyone for listening.
We will share the link of the website of the BASIS organization on the YouTube channel below this video, basically in the part description. And therefore, students will have, or other individuals will have more opportunities to learn about BASIS.
That's great.
All the best and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. All the best.